back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast, the space where intention meets transformation and wellness is a way of being. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today we are diving into a topic that will or is affecting every one of us: aging. Now, what if I could tell you that aging can actually be powerful, empowering? Well, to help me answer the question to this question, I have Steve McKinney. He's the best-selling author of The Gospel of Fitness, church pastor, fitness coach, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and founder of Fitness and More Inc. Now, let me share a bit about Steve with all of you listeners. He has helped thousands out there transform their lives with his 3W approach, grounded approach, which is weight training, walking, and watching your diet. And today we are talking about how to age strong, gracefully, live well, and honor your body with wisdom, not restriction. So it's going to be a bit different and really, really interesting. So let's quickly dive deep. So, Steve, welcome to the show, and it is an honor to have you with us today.
Lemon, thank you so much. It's actually my honor to be here, and I am very excited to talk about this topic that's very passionate. It's very dear to my heart.
That is beautiful, Steve. Beautiful. So, okay. So you're talking about your book, and before even I we talk about your book, what exactly where was the journey like, and what motivated you, or what kind of experiences your shaped your journey to write this book down, The Gospel of Fitness?
Absolutely. So I have always loved lifting weights. When I was very young, my grandfather took me to a store and bought me a set of weights. I was like 9 years old, and I just really fell in love with that. Well, fast forward, I continued to lift most of my life, and then had some tragedy in my life. Both my parents died at a very young age, and died at 49 years old. And so for
Mhm.
me, it was like, they didn't really take care of themselves. They didn't have a healthy lifestyle. And I just thought to myself, that is really, it didn't have to be that way. And so I just set out on a journey to try to help people to learn to age gracefully and to
Mhm.
try to stay healthy. And so what I did was I actually converted my garage into a gym, and I made it a personal training studio. And then I began to train clients, and I kept track of everything that the client could do. I just kept track of everything. And I started developing different ideas to make this
Mhm.
like the most efficient way to lift weights and to stay healthy, how to watch your diet, those types of things. And what I wanted to do was not just get people healthy for a short period of time, but create a what I call a lifestyle of fitness. And that is kind of what launched the 3W approach to fitness. And it really has taken off, and it's been really, really fun. And then the idea behind the book and how it happened, I've trained, been at different conferences, and I trained a friend of
Mhm.
mine who was at a pastor's conference, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And he said, "Hey, I know you're a workout guy. Can you train me?" So I took him into the gym and I trained him, and he is like, "Man, that's the best workout I have." Now, the interesting thing for my workouts are very short. They're only 15 minutes long. He goes, "It's the
Oh.
best work I've ever been through." Well, fast forward, he would always ask me questions. I was on his podcast a few times, and I said, his name's Pete. I said, "Pete, listen, I have a book that I'm about 90% done." He goes, "Well, that's interesting." He said, "I have a publishing company." And he goes, "Send me your book and let's see if we can work together." And he loved it. And so that's how it got started. And it just kind of took off from there.
Wow. Mm. Around 15 minutes of workout. And I'm really, really, really interested to explore that. But thank you so much for sharing, uh, that story, that journey behind how the Gospel of Fitness came into fruition. And what title? It's really a very bold title. What inspired that name? Because it kind of, sounds like an intersection between spirituality and health and fitness. And how exactly does this, shape your philosophy?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. I'll get that question all the time. Like, here's the question people will ask me. They'll say, "Hey, is this gospel or is this fitness? And my answer is always yes. Yes, it's both. And so, I believe that we're, we have, we are spiritual beings. We have a soul, a spirit, and a body. And I think that we are, we're created in a way that we need to honor our creator with what we do. And because it's all interconnected, I think there's the spiritual aspect of it. I think there's the physical aspect of it, taking responsibility for the gift that God has given us and trying to take care of
Mhm.
our body in the best way possible. And so, that's kind of how I intersect them. And if the root word of the gospel, it actually means good news. And so I think there's good news in the spiritual world, and I think there's good news in the physical world if you can understand the way I do things. And that's kind of how they connect together. And I just think that, keeping yourself healthy spiritually, keeping yourself healthy mentally, keeping yourself healthy physically, it's the most important things we can do. And it's like I said, the way that we honor our creator.
Mm, that is empowering. That is really, really empowering in its own way, Steve.
Thank you.
Also, let's look into this from a different perspective, um, and this is really, really unique and powerful integration because people often they separate body and spirit. In fact, body, mind, and spirit. But in so many of my conversations, I've learned this that there's a huge and very intricate, very profound connection between all the three of them. And now let's move on to another interesting portion. So, Steve, tell us about your 3W approach. I mean, it sounds simple. I did mention about like the weight training, walking, and watching your diet, but why exactly it is transformative, especially for those who are embracing or entering the aging dynamics?
So absolutely. Okay. So the first thing we have to do is we have to look at the things that we're fighting against. We have to look at the problem. And we're fighting basically against five different things in our life. The first thing we're fighting against is we're fighting aging, just like you said. The second thing we're fighting is what's called sarcopenia, which is age related muscle loss. And what
Okay.
that means is you're losing muscle as you age. And this starts to happen right at the age of 35. And when you begin to lose that muscle tissue, you can eat the same amount of food. But then what happens is because you're losing that muscle tissue and your metabolism begins to decline, you begin to deal with the third problem. The third problem is fat gain. So you lose muscle, you gain fat, you don't feel as good. Um, Another problem, I have 5 of them. The fourth problem is loss of balance, and this happens, I see this a lot with people. They just begin to not being able to be as mobile as they used to be. They don't move as well, and then the final problem is the loss of hope, because people will go on the internet, they'll look for ways to try to get in shape, and there's just so much information out there, it gets very confusing. So those are the problems, and so I just came up with a solution, and that's where my 3W approach came from. So talking about weight training, when you look at weight training, there's a benefit to each thing that I talk about, but the primary benefit of strength training is our weight training is to build strength and muscle, because it's not like you're going to be really muscular, but it's just trying to get the muscle back that we've lost, or trying not to lose muscle as we age. Now, I know it's really interesting when I say 15-minute workouts, because people don't really understand that. They almost have to experience it. But really, what it
Mhm.
comes down to is I use a principle, and the principle is called time under tension or time under load. And basically, what it means is when I take a person through a set of an exercise, I show them how to connect their mind to their muscle and to really
Mm.
feel what's happening at that time. But I keep tension on the muscle for 60 to 90 seconds. And I show them how to do that. I explain it in the book. I let them count reps and things like that. But what that does, it really digs in to that muscle, and it stimulates the muscle. And when you deeply stimulate muscle, it takes 3 or 4 days for it to fully recover. So 2 15-minute workouts per week is all I suggest. And in some cases, and I know this is going to be hard to believe, I only have people doing one 15-minute workout. That just depends, like, when people are over 70 or 60 years old, I reduce the amount of workout they could do, but I still train them very, very hard, and that's really important to remember. Now in the book, what I do is I have an 8-week program. I have a home workout and a gym workout, and I start people off at 3 days a week so that they can learn how we do it, and then we cut down to 2. So that's the weight training part. Now, when we get into the walking part, as I said earlier, most people begin to gain body fat. And now it's not everyone, but a lot of people do. And so when I have a client that comes in and they want to reduce body fat, um, one of the things I do is I have them walk. Now, the walk helps their mental aspect, it helps their physical aspect, but there's a way and a time to walk to optimize what you're doing with fat loss. So what I suggest to my clients is a 30-minute walk right after dinner. And it doesn't have to be a hard walk, just a very casual walk. Now, this is based on science. There was a study that was done, and what this study person did was he looked at 3 different ways of exercise, and then he counted the calorie burn 3 hours later. So basically what he did was he had a person walk for 30 minutes, and then he counted the calorie burn 3 hours later. He had the person eat and walk, and then he counted the same thing. And then he had a person walk and eat. And what he concluded was when a person ate and walked, it increased your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. It increased
Mhm.
that by 25 to 30%. And that is so what I do is I optimize everything. And there's in the way that I do fitness, I don't waste anyone's time. So you're not in the gym to socialize, you're in the gym to work out, you're in the gym to get results. When you take a walk, it helps your I tell people, when you take a walk, look around at creation. Look at the beauty of just a simple tree and how that comes about. And it's just amazing what it does for your brain. And then the third thing is watching your diet. And when we're watching our diet, a lot of people don't exactly understand what that's for. And the primary objective of watching your diet is to control your body fat levels. Now, some people just need to maintain, or some people even need to build some strength and muscle. But a lot of people, like I said, they come in for fat loss. So what they have to do is they have to create a caloric deficit, and you do that
Mhm.
through watching your diet. And what I mean also is, you cannot out exercise a bad diet. And a lot of people will try to do that, like, oh, I'm eating more, so I'll exercise more. After a certain
Yeah.
amount of time, that breaks your body down. So what I do is I'm very gentle with how your body works. I'm very gentle with just creating a calorie deficit, eating real food, live food that has enzymatic processes to it, and it makes you feel better. And then you combine those things together and you feel better, you look better, you're stronger, and your clothes fit better. And I think that's what most people are looking for. So with my system, I cut through a lot of the what I don't want to use the word nonsense, but it's a lot of it is nonsense that's out that it's out on the internet. It's very confusing, and sometimes it's even dangerous for people. And everything I do is safe, it's efficient, and it works. I've like I said, over the years, I've had thousands of people that I've trained and just really, really get results. And so that's what the system is about, and that's how it works.
Hmm. Well, that is really, really mindful. Whether it's lifting weights or weight training or walking. I mean, the thing with the walking, I really, really resonated with that because my father is a very avid lover of walking, especially after dinner. And then of course the diet watching, caloric deficit. So um, and also I think the best aspect is that this doesn't require extreme workouts or those fad diets. I mean, it really feels like accessible. And I would also love to know, and I guess our listeners as well, Steve, that have you seen any surprising transformations using this method?
Oh, yes, absolutely. On my website, it's fitnessandmore.net. And if you hit
Mm.
fitnessandmore.net/results, I have dozens. of before and after pictures, incredible results from people. And so I tell people in the book even, once you start it, just put some regular fitting clothes on, take a before picture, and then at the end, take an after picture. And you'll just notice the incredible results with that. But yes, there are really, I've had people literally lose over 100 pounds doing this. Now, the average is, I get a client in and I always set a goal for them. Usually it's 20 to 25 pounds. And we get
Mm.
that done, in anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. I have an 8-week program in the book, and you could lose up to 20 pounds in 8 weeks just based on where you're starting. But over the years, I have seen so many people have
Mm.
literally changed their life. And I have clients that have been with me for over 30 years. I have a friend, his name's Steve, and it was a client, but he's become a friend through that. And when he came to me over 30 years ago, I said, "Steve,
Mm.
what's your goal?" And he said, "I want to be able to play with my grandchildren." He didn't have any grandchildren yet. And his father passed away at like 42 years old from a heart condition. And so we just
Mhm.
developed a program with him. And he, to this day, he's lost about 60 pounds. He's kept it off. And he has two grandchildren, and he gets to play with them, the grandchildren regularly. So for me, that is what this whole thing is about. It's just helping people just to live the best life that they can and enjoy their family. And I called it aging gracefully. And that's the thing that I just enjoy so much doing.
That is so empowering and really, really such a positive, message, uh, especially in the aging. And also, Steve, any common fitness myths that you find people, you find holding people back, especially
Yeah.
as.
Yes. No, absolutely. And there's a couple of myths. You were going to say, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were going to say, especially as we age, correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's a couple of thoughts with that. The first thought is this: as you age, you can't do what you did when you were younger. You have to make those adjustments. And then you also have to understand too that it takes longer to recover from exercise. And a lot of times people go into the gym, they'll go into the gym 5 days a week, they'll work an hour at a time. And to me, that's 20 hours a month. And that is like a part-time job. I can get people as good as results, if not better, in a way shorter period of time. And it's safer. Now, one of the big problems that I see is how people actually do exercise. You'll see people with battle ropes and flipping tires and jumping on boxes and throwing the weights up and down. And you can get away with that for a while when you're younger, but as you get older, it does get harder. And when you have those kind of exercises, they're called ballistic movements. I'm not a big fan of those because they're just really hard on your body. And I think that the goal of weight training is to keep your muscles strong and to make sure that you're flexible. So what I do with my clients is I have them lift weights to what's called the full range of motion. And when they do that, motion, that functional motion of how your body actually works, I train them in biomechanically how the body actually works. If I can get people strong in those particular areas, they're strong in every other area of their life. So when people come to me, I train their overall body to get strong. And what I do is I have my client go from exercise to exercise with very little rest so that they have a very high heart rate and the heart gets stronger because there's a better, what's called stroke volume. So we're not throwing weights around, we're lifting weights under control, we're keeping people safe. And then because here's what's interesting, one injury can change the rest of your life. And I was on a podcast with a physician, and he was a big, strong guy, but he was 50 years old, and I really liked him. And we were just talking about this, and I was explaining how as you get older, as you get older, how your joints begin to hurt and how
Yes.
difficult that is. And at the end of the show, he was saying, "You know what? You're 100% right." He says, "My joints really bother me." And I told him, I go, "It's not gonna get any better. It's only gonna get worse as you age." And so he decided to give my method a shot. So I love that. I love to be able to, help people, keep them safe, and then give them a different idea of what it looks like and how to approach it. And I work with a lot of professionals. Work with a lot of average people. I work with professional athletes, and I'm able to make a difference in their life by just keeping things simple, safe, and then smart. And that's how we approach the whole thing. And that approach helps fight that aging process, and it also it also keeps the body healthy, and that's the biggest key of staying healthy over a long period of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in the beginning, when you were explaining about the problems before explaining the 3W approach, you mentioned about hope.
Yeah.
So now I'll connect this question properly. So I guess mindset has a lot to do here, especially in aging, because um, people think that, we can't avoid aging, and aging means we are declining physically, mentally. But your approach kind of reframes the things here. It's more about essential. It's about graceful aging. So how do you think, or what mindset shifts do you think are essential to embrace aging
Yes.
as
Yes.
advantage?
Yes. So for me, I'm 64 years old now. I still train jujitsu. I train a couple days a week. I lift weights a couple days a week. And my mindset is I really look at this and I say, sometimes I love doing it. So for me, it's not very hard. But I also know what it does for me. It reduces stress. And that is a big factor because once I'm training, I'm in the moment. I'm not everywhere else. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just thinking about what I'm doing, and that is super helpful. And when I talk about hopelessness, there's several different things that come to my mind. The first thing is people are hopeless in the sense of, hey, I started a program before and it didn't work, and this one's not going to work. But I simplify the program and I give them hope that it will work. The other thing is when people age, they have to understand and embrace the aging process. Sometimes we try to run away from it, we try to ignore it. But the truth is, as we age, it gets harder. Things get harder. I think you have to accept that and then you fight back. And what I mean by that is you set yourself a schedule, you set some goals, you make sure you have a proper direction, you make sure you have a safe program, and then you slowly just move forward. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to lift weights, I'm going to look fantastic. That may happen, but at the same time, I think you may not have this perfect body, especially as you age, but I think you should just do the best you can and trust in the program, remain hopeful. I look at I have a grandson now, and he's a year and a half old. There's nothing more fun for me than hanging out with my grandson, being able to get on the floor with him, getting up and down, still being able to do things. And so that's how I approach everything. I approach everything with an idea of hope, of making sure I can do things, and this just remain positive, knowing that everything's going to work out no matter what happens. I'm still going to make it through. And so that's kind of how I look at things. I just remain hopeful. And I think goals are really important in the middle of that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Steve. Absolutely makes sense
Yeah.
because it's not only the hope part, but also being practical and staying aligned with the goals you have in your mind, in your heart. I
Yes.
think both of
Hmm.
that's required.
Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant, Steve. So before we wrap, of course, if our listeners would like to connect with you and get a hold of your book, The Gospel of Fitness, what's the best way?
The best way, the book is at Amazon.com, Steve McKinney and the Gospel of Fitness. My website is fitnessandmore.net. And there's an introductory workout there. If people want to fill out a form, we can chat through there. On Instagram, I'm Fitness and More STL. And email is steve@fitnessandmore.net. And that's all spelled out. And I'll help people in any way they can. I do online training if people are interested in that. I do coaching. I have all kinds of things that people could do if they're interested with that. So that's how I approach it.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And Steve, I guess this conversation has not just been educational, but also incredibly grounding and centered. And it's definitely, I think, what overall it looks like that we are expressing gratitude towards our body, mind, and spirit. So thank
Yes.
you so much for sharing your wisdom, your energy, your journey with us today.
It's been my pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, to all my listeners, mindful living listeners, if you are tuning in and you want to learn more, just grab a copy of the Gospel of Fitness, try out, visit the website. I'll have all the links to connect with Steve and his book and his 3W approach. And until next time, remember that the mindful living isn't just about how we think, it's more about how we move or how we nourish our body, our mind, our spirit, and how we honor the body that carries our soul. So, with that, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.